Imagine a time when the vast plains of North America were ruled not by European settlers or powerful governments, but by a fearsome and skilled group of warriors. They were unmatched on horseback, fierce in battle, and dominated a territory larger than many European nations. This was the rise of the Comanche Nation, a story of adaptation, survival, and a relentless pursuit of power. Stay with us as we dive into the history of the Comanche, the Lords of the Plains, and explore how they became one of the most formidable forces in North American history. The Comanche Nation's rise to power is a remarkable chapter in the history of North America. Originally part of the Shoshone tribe, the Comanche embarked on a journey that would see them evolve from a small group of hunter-gatherers into a dominant force on the southern plains. Their story is one of strategic adaptation, skilled horsemanship, and a keen understanding of the power dynamics between Native American tribes and European colonizers. The Comanche people began their journey in the Great Basin region, which encompasses parts of present-day Nevada, Utah, and Idaho. As a part of the larger Shoshone tribe, they shared cultural and linguistic ties with other tribes in the area. However, towards the end of the 17th century, the Comanche began to migrate southward in search of new opportunities. This migration was driven by several factors, including the need for better hunting grounds, competition with other tribes, and possibly the influence of the first Spanish explorers. The move southward marked the beginning of the Comanche's transformation from a relatively obscure group into one of the most powerful Native American tribes in history. The Comanche's rise to power can be traced back to their adoption of the horse, which was introduced to North America by the Spanish in the 16th century. Although horses had been present in the Southwest for several decades, it wasn't until the late 17th and early 18th centuries that the Comanche began to incorporate horses into their culture. The impact of the horse on Comanche society cannot be overstated. The Comanche became master horsemen, using their new mobility to revolutionize their way of life. With horses, they could travel vast distances quickly, expand their hunting territories, and launch raids on rival tribes and European settlers. The Comanche became so adept at horsemanship that they earned the title Lords of the Plains. Horses allowed the Comanche to expand their influence across a vast territory known as the Comancheria. This region, which at its height stretched from present-day Colorado in the north to Texas in the south, and from New Mexico in the west to Oklahoma in the east, became the heartland of Comanche power. The expansion of the Comanche was not just a matter of territorial conquest. It was also a testament to their military prowess and strategic diplomacy. The Comanche were skilled warriors, known for their ability to strike quickly and with devastating effect. Their raids were often conducted with such speed and precision that their enemies had little chance to mount a defense. However, the Comanche were also shrewd diplomats. They formed alliances with other tribes, such as the Kiowa and the Wichita, which bolstered their military strength and extended their influence. These alliances were often based on mutual benefit. By allying with the Comanche, these tribes could share in the spoils of raids and protect themselves from common enemies. The Comanche's dominance in the southern plains was further solidified by their control over key trade routes. They engaged in trade with the Spanish, French, and later American settlers, exchanging horses, captives, and other goods. This trade not only brought wealth to the Comanche but also allowed them to maintain a degree of independence from European powers. The Comanche economy was primarily based on hunting, particularly bison hunting. The bison was central to Comanche life, providing food, clothing, shelter, and tools. The Comanche were expert hunters, using their superior horsemanship to hunt bison in large numbers. This not only sustained their population but also provided them with valuable trade goods. In addition to hunting, the Comanche engaged in raiding, which became an essential part of their economy. Raiding was not just a means of acquiring resources. It was also a way of asserting dominance and maintaining control over their territory. The Comanche conducted raids on other tribes, as well as on European settlements, taking horses, captives, and other valuable items. These raids were highly organized and often involved large numbers of warriors. The Comanche's reputation for ferocity and their ability to strike quickly and without warning made them a formidable enemy. Their raids were so effective that they were able to resist attempts by European powers to subdue them for much of the 18th and 19th centuries. The rise of the Comanche coincided with the arrival of European colonizers in the American Southwest. Initially, the Comanche engaged in trade with the Spanish and later with the French and American settlers. However, relations were often tense, as the Comanche were determined to maintain their independence and resist European encroachment on their lands. The Comanche were adept at playing European powers against each other. In the early 18th century, they allied with the French against the Spanish, using this alliance to their advantage in the struggle for control of the southern plains. Later, as the United States expanded westward, the Comanche allied with American settlers against the Mexicans, further solidifying their position. Despite their efforts to maintain independence, the Comanche were increasingly drawn into conflicts with European powers. The Spanish, French, and later the Americans all sought to control the southern plains, leading to a series of conflicts with the Comanche. These conflicts were often brutal, with both sides suffering heavy losses. The Comanche reached the height of their power in the mid-19th century. At this time, the Comancheria was a well-organized and prosperous domain, with a population that may have reached up to 45,000. The Comanche controlled trade routes, conducted raids as far south as Mexico, and effectively dictated terms to their neighbors. The Comanche's influence was so great that they were able to resist attempts by both the Spanish and later the Mexican governments to subdue them. Even the United States, after acquiring Texas and other territories from Mexico, struggled to control the Comanche. The U.S. government launched numerous military campaigns against the Comanche in the mid-19th century, but these efforts were largely unsuccessful. The decline of the Comanche Nation began in the latter half of the 19th century. Several factors contributed to this decline, including the depletion of the bison herds, the spread of diseases like smallpox, and increasing pressure from European settlers and the U.S. military. The most significant blow to the Comanche came with the destruction of the bison herds. By the 1870s, the bison population had been decimated by overhunting, largely driven by European settlers and the U.S. government, which sought to undermine the Comanche's way of life. Without the bison, the Comanche's economy and food supply were severely crippled. At the same time, the U.S. military intensified its campaigns against the Comanche. The Red River War of 1874-75 was a decisive conflict in which the U.S. Army, using superior numbers and technology, was able to defeat the Comanche and force them onto reservations. The Comanche, now vastly outnumbered and without their primary means of subsistence, had no choice but to surrender. After their defeat, the Comanche were relocated to reservations in present-day Oklahoma. Life on the reservation was difficult, as the Comanche had to adapt to a sedentary lifestyle, learn new ways of farming, and deal with the loss of their traditional culture. However, the Comanche people proved resilient, and in the 20th century, the Comanche began to rebuild their community, preserving their cultural heritage while also adapting to the modern world. Today, the Comanche Nation is a federally recognized tribe with a population of over 17,000 members. They are actively involved in cultural preservation, economic development, and political advocacy. The rise and fall of the Comanche Nation is a testament to the adaptability, resilience, and indomitable spirit of the Comanche people. From their humble beginnings as a small offshoot of the Shoshone tribe, the Comanche grew to become the dominant force on the southern plains, shaping the history of North America in profound ways. Though their empire may have fallen, the legacy of the Comanche lives on, a reminder of a time when the plains were ruled by the Lords of the Plains. Their story is not just one of conquest and power, but also of survival and endurance, qualities that continue to define the Comanche Nation to this day. Thank you for joining us in exploring